Cool. So for today's episode, we have Ashwin Ramesh with us, who is a CA. So welcome, Ashwin.
Hi, thanks, Sonali.
Ashwin, before we start, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay, so in terms of an introduction, by qualification, I'm a chartered accountant. I've worked at Singvideo only during my articleship. Post that, I joined Goldman Sachs for industrial training, and I joined World Bank, and I was there for about 10 months. Post that, right now I'm working with Ernst& Young as a senior in audit division.
So Ashwin, let's talk about the career choices that you have made, right? So you completed your BCom
Yeah.
and then you went for, or you completed your CA. So if you can help me understand, like, what other career options do you have after a BCom, and why did you specifically, go towards the CA path?
Basically, commerce, once you decide it's commerce, you have like BCom as well as BBA as your base for doing an undergraduation. But once you complete that, majority of the people do not stop there. They would want to pursue something much more than that. At that point in time, you in the current world have various options, which includes but is not limited to chartered accountancy course, the company secretary course, the cost accountant course, the MBAs, the MComs, the masters in financial management, and there are a lot more. Like ACCA, for that matter, is gaining a lot of uh, impetuous right now. So there's nothing like which is a limiting factor. What exactly makes you decide as to what is your next course is totally dependent upon what are your choices into what you see yourself in the future. For that matter, there are people who would want to go into a job right after BCom, because at that point they would want to know what exactly is the niche marketing thing that is needed in this world for them, so that depending upon what they are gaining from a work experience, they would put that into their future educational thing, so that next step, whatever they do, is only related to the work. But the other side of it is people who would do the traditional way of education first and then the job. So in my case, probably I was in my 11th standard itself when I almost decided that I was going to do a CA. And in every subsequent period of it, it was almost like just a kind of confirmation that yes, CA it is going to be. So to give a background, my mom's a CA, my dad's a CS in this particular thing. So I almost had it like, okay, I'm going to do a CA. Maybe it was more driven by the fact that my parents were also into the commerce field, but that is not the limiting factor. So I had my uncle, who's again a CA. He's been mentoring right throughout from probably my BCom days. In my BCom, I had a couple of professors who always were there for my inputs whenever I needed them. I could approach. There were times when they themselves used to come and tell me that these are the things that you need to be doing, because we have like a lot of options in today's world, and that in a way becomes also a problem because you don't know what to choose. So I kind of narrowed down between CA, CS, and MBA. Uh, and MFM was the other option, Masters in Financial Management. What was the driving factor for me to confirm that it is definitely going to be CA was the fact that I was someone who wanted technical knowledge, and CA is something where you enhance your technical knowledge. In CA, there is a wide plethora of subjects, which includes accountancy, it includes law, not to the extent of company secretary, but definitely gives you a knowledge about what it is. It also includes the various aspects of costing, taxation, and different other things. I asked myself, do you want to get into an MBA, which is more into something like a generic, it is not specific towards commerce. It's something that where a science student also can come up and then continue and do a master's in business administration. It's basically administration side, and you enhance yourself in presentation skills, the way you negotiate, and also your knowledge in term, but it is not going to be as depth as a CA. The second question that comes is, does it mean that MBA is not going to be an option for you at all? The natural option that people told me was, MBA is something where you enhance your leadership skills, but CA is something where you improve your technical skills. I may be wrong, but as a matter of fact, if you really look at it, your grasp of understanding and taking a lot of technical and related stuff are a lot more when you're younger, and it gradually reduces as you grow older. CA is not an easy course, definitely, and nobody's going to contradict that. And if I have to do at one point in time and I want to achieve it, it had to be as early as possible. So I never let go of the opportunity to start it as early as possible. So there was this option of me doing CA along with BCom. But what that would have meant was the fact that I would have to be studying all along. And that is not something I like. I wanted to get into a normal life, probably enjoy, because I kind of write a lot, I kind of play a lot, I kind of do a lot of other things. And if I had to find time for those and also balance my studies, I wanted to do one at a time, and I was in no hurry to complete a degree. So it meant that I completed my BCom. Right through my BCom, I had a couple of professors who always were there, and they used to guide me on what needs to be done. And they were the ones who probably put it to me that once I finish my BCom, I am going to start a CA. And as probably once I am established enough in technical knowledge and I find myself pretty good at that, I can never vouch. I mean, like, I don't know if anyone can do that, that they are experts and all, but I definitely am not. But to an extent that I can grasp, I have done that. And probably once I'm established and find that, okay, fine, this is good enough, probably I would be thinking about an MBA from a good college tier, and then go about it.
But if you can also help me understand, what exactly do you do in an articleship? So if you
Okay.
can touch upon that.
Yeah. So basically, when it comes to articleship, the first question that people ask themselves is, do I do it at a big four or do I do it at a mid-sized firm? Now, each of these two have their own pros and their own cons. So you need to understand what is it that you want to achieve. So if you are someone who is going to say that, okay, fine, I'm very comfortable working for long hours and I want to be very specific, because a big four generally is going to tell you that you are going to get into statutory audit and you will be in statutory audit for a long time. And or if you get into taxation, you're going to be there. But in case of a mid-sized firm, that is not the case, because they're not going to have as much people or like articles, or for that matter staff. So what happens is always have a mix of everything, but it may be that the big four by itself have a brand name, they have established practices, they have established templates of different things. This may not be happening at a mid-sized firm. So in a mid-sized firm, you have a variety of things to learn about. For example, you might even be learning how to do a Xerox copy if you haven't done that. But probably a big four, there might be a separate person who's going to do that, and they're going to ask them to do it. So in a mid-sized firm, it's more like your responsibility, your ownership. You get learn a lot more than just about audits or taxation. In a big four, it is more systematic, it is more um, process oriented, and it is in that way it is different. So since I was doing it a mid-sized firm, we had like 5 separate divisions at our firm. So it was business consultancy, where it had to do with kind of consulting about different matters that the client was asking us. Maybe it might be a discounted cash flow, as simple as that, or it might be into a virtual CFO kind of a thing, wherein you have to probably make up Excel models about different things. The other thing was naturally, as a chartered accountant, you'll be in statutory as well as internal audits, and also because you're again into CA, it will be indirect and direct taxations. So these are the 5 broad areas where you would be exposed, and that was what I had in my articleship experience.
Okay. And also, like the last year of your articleship, I think you did an industrial training, right? If you can, so like when we speak to students, it's more like it's very difficult to find these kind of opportunities. So if you can,
Right.
touch upon it, like how can students look at these kind of opportunities, and what role did this kind of an industrial training and as well as your articleship played in your career, are playing in your career today?
Okay. So the moment you become a chartered accountant, or once you complete the articleship journey itself, you still have an option. It's not like an MBA I don't want to be specific to MBA, like any other normal graduation or a post graduation, wherein you're streamlined into a specific particular industry. But in case of a CA, you have an option either to practice, or you get into an industry and work at a MNC or even a private entity, whichever be the matter. So it's a total choice that is up to you. I felt that unless I have tasted both the waters, I cannot be a judge as to where I want to be in future. So which meant that at the end of 2 years, when the institute gave me the option to move away from an articleship experience and into an industry, I just wanted to make sure that I was not wasting that particular opportunity at that point in time. So probably towards 1.5 years plus of my articleship experience was when I started looking out for opportunities. I probably had a few connections who, my cousin, of course, was working at Goldman at that point in time. It was a real help. And then I had a few other HR related people who were there in different industry, like consultancy firms who, could pitch in with, if I send them the resume, they could probably share it whenever it was possible. So you need to kind of start a little bit early, plan what you want to be doing, and once you have decided this is what you want to do, you need to make sure that everything that you do is in line with what you want to be or where you want to go to. So these were things that I started probably 1.5 years into my articleship experience. I sent out my resume to a few people and then asked them to share it with whoever was possible. LinkedIn was once again a brilliant platform. Probably back then it wasn't as much used as it is today, but every opportunity that you get to explore and use something which is available to you, you shouldn't have a thought about not using it at all. And things like these definitely worked in my favor somehow. And after a long rounds of interview, I finally did manage to get into Goldman. And there was another firm as well that I wanted to, but then at one point in time, you can't be at two different places. But it was a difficult decision to make because they both were something that I liked. Finally, it was Goldman, and it was all pretty fine about it. So that was more into how you would be like once you qualify as a chartered accountant, what would be your nature of work in an industry per se. And in 2 years of my articleship, I learned what it is to be as a chartered accountant in practice. So probably by the end of 3 years, I had I wouldn't tell a complete idea, but definitely a pretty good idea as to what it would be if I'm in an industry, what would it be if I'm going to continue in practice.
So I'll move further now. When after completing your CA, basically you were working at World Bank, and then now you are working, as a senior in audit at ENY. So if you can help me understand that, what exactly do you do? Like what are the roles and responsibilities, and what does a person do right now who is in your role? Yeah.
Okay. Yep, got it. Okay, so the question that is gonna directly come up is, why did I quit World Bank? I mean, you were at World Bank and you were working, and why did you do that? Well, I told you that there are two coins once you become a chartered accountant. One is the fact that you are going to practice, another is the fact that you may end up in an industry. What was happening at that point in time that I realized at one point was I was getting specialized into a particular niche of things. For example, when I was in World Bank, I was totally into loan operations. So I was getting exposed into all of those, but which also meant that if suppose tomorrow I get, I mean, it's natural that one point in time you're going to say that this is not something that I want to do for the rest of my life. Uh, at that point in time, if I'm going to say that, okay, this is not something I want, maybe 5 years later, what opportunities did I have was extremely limited because I had specialized into something so narrow. So if I was moving out, probably I would have to only get into another banking industry or something. Because, okay, maybe you might get into something better. I can't deny it, but your experience may not be counted again. You might be taken in as a fish. Now, vis-a-vis against this, if I get into say a Big Four by itself has a pretty good brand name first and foremost. Second is the scope of your work increases a lot because when you get into a audit firm per se, you do a lot more of things rather than just process oriented things. In an industry, once you get in, it is extremely process oriented. You are in a process, you specialize into that process. Say, for example, if you are into fixed assets, you're going to be doing fixed assets related stuff all along. You are going to understand the standards that are applicable to that. You're going to keep monitoring it all along. And then if somebody comes up and asks you a question about fixed assets, definitely you can answer. But at that point in time, what you'll also realize is you've lost your touch about the changes that have happened, say in a revenue related standard. There might be new things coming up. You might not be updated with that. But if you are going to be in a chartered accountant, the work is definitely going to be more hectic. Yep. But then your spectrum has increased, and therefore your work timing may be like too much. You're gonna definitely probably gonna complain the fact that you work long hours and all those, but that is also because of the fact that you are exposed to a lot more. Once again, I'm not denying that in an industry this learning is not possible. It is definitely possible, but probably you're gonna not explore as much as you are gonna explore if in case of a audit firm. So that meant that at a age that I was in, I had the time and I had the bandwidth and I had the, what do you call, say, the urge to explore something more. And that's the reason why I went back into audit profile and probably go along for some time before I eventually, means it's natural that I'm eventually going to switch back to industry, because that is something I cannot say that I do not like. But for now, I definitely would be in audit.
So Ashwin, this brings me to the last question actually, which is that what would be your suggestion for people who are exploring different career options right now, right? And are looking at a path which is similar to yours. So what would be some pointers that they can keep in mind that you would suggest?
It totally depends upon who you are as a person, what you want to achieve, and what are your strengths and weaknesses. What is definitely important is to have someone who really knows about what the industry and like what different things options are. With every passing day, there are different institutes that are coming up with new courses, new types of courses, some with 6 week specialization course, some with 6 month course, some with a different kind of a thing. So when it comes to learning something, you have like a plethora of options in today's world, but you need to identify yourself with the help of someone who has knowledge about all these and also knowledge about who you are, what is best for you. Each one of us is unique, and there can't be a single pill for every cure, every disease. Every disease has its own different cure, which means that every single person have their own path and their own trajectory that they need to be establishing for themselves. What I would definitely tell is there is definitely a path for you. There is definitely a right path. You don't have to be in the right path, but you definitely need to be in the path where you want to go into. And for that, do a lot of questioning about what this path will lead me into, whether this will lead me to where I am, whether this is to my strengths, or does it involve me going out of the way in order to reach this. Would I be satisfied once I am into this path? There is nothing like an end to the path, it's always the journey. So will I always be beating around it, or will I always, not always, will I be enjoying this journey? So if you are going to enjoy this journey, definitely take that path. Talk to people who know what it is, but always ensure that there is someone who really knows you, what you have achieved, what is your background, because they can tell you their story, they can tell you a brilliant story, but we don't know if that will fit you. It needs to fit you more than anything else.
Cool. So thank you so much, Ashwin. This brings me to the end of the session today. And I'm sure that the feedback coming from professionals themselves is definitely something that, students who are in colleges right now can use and can find insightful and helpful. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Sonali. It was really a pleasure.